Welcome back. I'm Michael Bull, and this is America's Commercial Real Estate Show. This segment is brought to you by Bull Realty Asset and Occupancy Solutions, licensed in 9 Southeast states, headquartered in Atlanta. Visit bullrealty.com. Well, today we're talking logistics, we're talking industrial real estate, we're talking warehouse, and now we're going to talk about ports. Please welcome my guest, Bart Gobeil. He's Senior Director, Economic Development, Government Affairs with the Georgia Port Authority, and he's joining us on Skype. Bart, thanks for being with us.
Glad to be here. Thanks for having me today.
Well, Bart, there's certainly been a lot of changes in logistics and in retail and in warehousing, industrial real estate. You guys have made some major changes at your port there in Savannah. Kind of what's it mean? What are you seeing from your desk today?
Yeah, it's been a nonstop flurry of activity, especially over the past year or so, with the expansion of the Panama Canal opening last July. We've seen a record year here in Savannah, as well as other ports in Brunswick, Georgia, as well. And so it's nonstop. And of course, we need to have that supply chain. It doesn't just end at the water. It doesn't just end at the terminal. It ends beyond our gates here in Savannah. And so we've seen a flurry of activity, both near our port as well as areas all the way up into the Atlanta market. So it's been very positive.
Yeah, and your increase in volume, Bart, is that coming from the economy doing well, or is that coming from the deepening of the port? What do you think?
Yeah, it's a great question. We'd like to take credit for it all. It's a number of different things. The economy just doing so well right now, and it's also the fact that we're starting to see these larger ships come into the East Coast, moving from the West Coast. They were traditionally calling on the West Coast. Now with the canals, I said, opening up and being wider, we're seeing larger vessels, not necessarily more vessels, but larger vessels calling on the East Coast ports. So it's not only just us here in Savannah. Other ports up and down the East Coast are doing extremely well. However, what we have done here at the Georgia Ports Authority, from the investments that we have made over the past 10 years, plus with the investment plan that we have moving forward, we've purchased 10 more cranes, massive cranes that come in from China to help us get to these large vessels and take products on and off of them. And so it's the economy, it's the fact that our service is impeccable here at the Georgia Ports Authority, as well as our location into the markets that are growing into the Southeast as well as into the Midwest. So it's a number of different factors that allow us to have grown tremendously. I was actually just looking at some numbers last night. In 2010, our volume was 2.8 million TEUs, which is kind of a unit we use to measure ports to port. We'll probably hit 4 million this year, so that's a 43% growth in that 7-year time frame. So it's just phenomenal.
Yeah, and the numbers are pretty big on what you guys have invested in the port as well, right?
It's unbelievable. We've invested about $1 billion. So the expansion project to deepen our harbor, that is close to $1 billion in and of itself. And so that's made up of, that's funded through a number of different monetary funds, through state taxes, tax dollars, as well as federal tax dollars. So that's $1 billion. But on the terminal and around the terminal, the Port Authority, based on the revenue that we have from our customers, we've invested $1 billion over the last 10 years, and we're going to invest another $2 billion of our capital expenditure. Our plan is to invest $2 billion over the next 10 years as well. Wow. And so it's one of those. We're a heavy utility type of business where we're constantly investing, constantly churning dollars back into the system so we can effectively and efficiently serve our customers and end use customers, your customers as well.
Yeah, well, I'd have to say that, $1 billion here and $1 billion there, pretty soon you're talking about real money. Right?
Real money. That's exactly right.
What is the impact, Bart, around the country, the Southeast, of this port and its expansion and growth?
Yeah. So directly, the studies that we've done through the University of Georgia, that they've indicated that the we have about 370,000 jobs that we support in the state of Georgia. It's about a seventh of the gross domestic product for the state itself. It's about, which translates to about 35-40 billion dollars. Again, billion dollars, what what's it really mean? But then nationally, it's much more just imports in general. And so if we really think through, it's not only just the import side, but it's the export side, and it's both. You have products coming in to be manufactured, processed, and then exported out to be sold into the global market. And so it's a tremendous of impact that we have. We have 1,100 employees that are Georgia Ports Authority employees on our terminal. But just to kind of put that in perspective, we also have probably another 2,000 or 3,000, 2,500 other employees that call the terminal their office. These are longshoremen, these are stevedores, different parts of the overall logistics process. So it's not only just us; it's the people out here on a daily basis that work on our terminal that call this place home when they're away from home.
Yeah. Well, Bart, I think our audience would be interested to hear from you with the participants that you get to talk to every day, around the world. Are you seeing any change on imports and exports with, Trump's nationalism talk? What are people saying? What are you hearing? What are you seeing?
Yeah, you've seen a little bit of both. We're traditionally in Savannah. We have been basically a balanced port, or it's been about 52%, 55% import base with that 45% export makeup. And that's really kind of been about the same. That changes a little bit, but that's more to the fact of how the dollar is compared to other currencies. But we'll track where we consistently are. So if like a West Coast port might be about 70% import. We usually track around with what they're doing proportionally. So to answer your question directly, though, it's still a lot of the unknown. Where the president has come out, obviously made some statements about trade agreements. We feel that we'll benefit from the current trade agreements, and we'll benefit from other agreements that allow American products to be exported, because we have a lot of ships and services that call on us last, which is a good thing when they're departing to go to other parts of the world. So when you make your product, you bring it into the Savannah market, we'll put it on the ship, and we'll be the last port of call to leave the United States as it goes abroad. So I think overall, folks are still trying to figure it out. We've seen some announcements, the Toyota, Mazda, let's go invest in the United States. But again, we're still importing products into the United States that allows for manufacturing to occur and jobs to continue to be created, and then export those products overseas as well. And also I want to add too, with the agricultural products too, with Georgia obviously being a strong, it's number one industry in the state of Georgia is agriculture. So that benefits us, whether it's onions, whether it's cotton, other products going abroad. So we've benefited from both.
Yeah. And I recently took a tour with the Georgia CCIM chapter of your port. You guys did a great tour, and it's amazing to see just how evolved this port is and what you guys do there, and also the technology. So Bart, how has the technology changed over the years with all your products and containers and tracking them and things?
It's fascinating. I'm not the IT guy, so for me, just to understand a little bit of what's going on, it's just mind-boggling. When folks come out on our tours for the ports, we tell them it's not that difficult, because we're moving boxes from point A to point B to point C and then onto a ship and it departs. But all the technology that goes in from when a trucker pulls up to our gate, gets a ticket, there's an RFID system that allows us to say, okay, here comes Bob or Julie coming on in. All right, you're coming in to pick up this box. It's over here. So we have, as you can imagine, the infrastructure and the system that we have in place that says you need to go to this specific box at this specific location to pick this up, and then the gentleman, the ladies up in one of the cranes will then we'll take that, and they'll see you coming in, and they'll know where to move it. So it's unbelievable, the amount of technology, the constant capital expenditures in which we're improving our technology, because it's all about the customers and in making sure that they get their products to the market quickest and first. We want to make sure that our systems don't hold those up, don't hold those products up. We don't want to, we want to be there for you continually, and we don't want you to notice our service from the standpoint of when it's down. And so that's a constant battle of making sure that we're improving the system. So we're, like all ports, as technology has been introduced to improve the system, we're taking a look at those, and we're making some massive investments for the future, because we're growing. We're all going to continue to grow on the East Coast as well, and so we want to make sure that we're there and that we're prepared for those spikes.
Yeah. And what areas of the country are you guys feeding from this port?
Sure. Of course, the Southeast in the Atlanta market. As the Atlanta market grows, but we're also 4 hours to Orlando. We're 4 hours to Charlotte on a truck. But then we're building out a mega rail system. It's a $144 million project. It will be done probably in 2021 timeframe, which will allow us to feed into the Chicago market, Columbus, Ohio market, the Memphis market, which is a great market because it's a lot of warehousing space there, which the Nashville market as well. So we're not only just looking at we're the Georgia Ports Authority, but we look beyond the state of Georgia for our customers, of course, in where the warehousing spaces, the industrial spaces, but we're really working to get up into the upper Midwest of the United States. And that has allowed us, with the canal opening and widening, that allows folks to, we're the westernmost port in the United States. So we're directly south of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. A lot of folks don't realize that. So that means we can get product to the upper Midwest, into the Midwest region, a lot quicker than other ports on the East Coast.
Yeah, that's interesting. So give the listeners an idea of the scope of the size of your port there. Some people may not realize how big it really is.
Sure. We are the fourth largest port in the United States by volume. And so you have LA and Long Beach right next to each other, New York, and then there's Savannah. A lot of folks don't realize that. They think sleepy Savannah. We're just, kind of a maybe 10th, 15th, but we're the fourth largest port in the United States. In terms of volume, like I said, we'll probably reach about 4 million TEUs this year, which is a 20-foot equivalent unit, which is if you see a tractor trailer going up and down the highway, that's usually a 40-foot equivalent unit, just kind of put things into perspective. We have the largest single terminal in the United States. It's a massive terminal right here in Savannah. So it's one terminal. So instead of having to go back and forth between terminals all around the city, you just come here to Garden City, which is right outside of Savannah. It's massive. It's hundreds of acres, and we're continuing to grow.
Yeah. So I saw one note that said it's 1,200 acres.
1,200 acres. Yep,
wow.
That's correct. 100 acres. And what it allows us to do is, and we've divided it up. So we obviously are moving the exports closer to the ship as the ship gets ready to unload, and then then again reload back up before it departs. But we have different spaces where if you're just bringing in an empty, we can kind of segregate you into a certain part, so you don't have to go around to the whole terminal. So it allows you to do multiple trips. Our truckers in the community, they'll probably turn about 7 trips a day. Other ports, that's unheard of, and these guys are getting paid by the trip. So if you can do 6 or hustle and do 7 a day, you're making a really good income for the community as well. And so that allows us this fluidity and velocity of the way that we operate, and due to the size of the actual terminal itself, allows us to have that workforce that we need.
And Bart, what would you tell our listeners regarding the future of logistics and imports and exports and the ports? What do you see down the road?
Yeah, it's continuing to change. That's what we see down the road. The saying is the only constant is change, and that's going to occur. And so on the industrial side, on the warehousing side, as e-commerce becomes a lot more of the way people operate, what are those changes going to look like into the real estate market? And as everybody asked me about it, like, well, if I knew that, I'd be making a lot more money than I'm making right now, right? We'd have that market cornered, but we're constantly working with our end-use customers and who are the retailers, and saying, what do you, whether it's online or with a store location, brick and mortar retailers, what are you seeing? How can we help you? How can we help in the economic development department? How can we help you continue to to move forward and to serve your customers. So it's timing, I guess, is really, to answer your question, is going to be how fast can you get your product to the customer, and what exactly, where are you bringing it to them before it actually gets to the customer. And so those are the two big things that we see and that we face in the years to come.
Right. Well, very interesting, Bart. Thanks for joining us today. We appreciate you being on the show.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me. Have a good day.
Yeah, and thanks for joining us, and stay with us. We'll have more on industrial real estate, on warehouses, on logistics. Stay with us. I'm Michael Bull. This is America's Commercial Real Estate Show.